Hello, everyone, and welcome from cold and almost snowy New Zealand. I'm in Christchurch, and it's getting to be wintry here, and it's Saturday morning. So you're in on the East Coast, and it's still Friday, and we're already a day ahead of you. But today we're going to actually take a little bit more time because it's Saturday for me, so I got a lot of time to hang out with you, and we're so send me your chats if you have questions about any of the material that I've got here. And a little bit later on, also we're going to be joined by the one and only Bob Batchelor, and we're going to talk to him about some of these things that we've been discussing. So I've just as an update, I started live streaming about a week ago because of the situation with Vantage Travel, and that situation, I didn't think it could get any worse, but it actually has gotten worse. And I'll have an update later on, and maybe ask Bob what he thinks of that. But there's a lot of people, obviously, especially on Facebook, who have cruises scheduled on Vantage and wanted to know as much as they can about whether their cruises are going to be leaving and how they can either get a refund or whether their cruises will be operating as normal. So I'll try to answer all of those if I can. But there's a lot more to talk about here on this freezing cold Saturday morning in New Zealand. And so I wanted to start with a couple of things that we've got going. I had yesterday, or actually it would have been today, earlier today, I had a post on Elliott Confidential, my newsletter, about airlines and how much they should be made to suffer when something goes wrong. So you may have heard that Southwest Airlines had a $1.1 billion quarterly loss because of the meltdown that happened over the holidays. And then there was also a study done that ranked Southwest as the worst airline in the United States. It's kind of hard to believe, really, because, I mean, look, they're bad, but they've done some bad things, but God, the worst airline, that's really pretty incredible. So the question that I had was, how long should an airline be made to suffer for what it's done? And I know that there are people out there, I know I feel this way sometimes, that have these fantasies about really sticking it to an airline when it's done some terrible things to you. And I don't know how long we should let this go on. So I had a couple of really interesting comments. And by the way, if you have a comment on anything that I'm saying here, we've got time. I'm not going anywhere. So you can go ahead and put your chat in, and I'll actually see it here and I can answer. So one of the comments that I had was from Lisa, or Liza, who said, wait a second, you're saying that Southwest Airlines is the worst airline, but I don't think it's true. I think American Airlines is worse. She said American Airlines is just a horrendous airline. The way that they treat their disabled passengers is disgusting. She says, I speak from experience. And, I get a lot of, the most complaint about airline here at my advocacy organization is definitely American Airlines, without a doubt. And they also really like sticking it to their customers. So when something goes wrong, they like to show them the rules and say, hey, these are the rules, and we're not gonna do anything for you. And I've also gotten a fair number of complaints about from people who are disabled. And I know I was disabled temporarily for a couple of months, and it's really, the way that airlines treat their disabled passengers is really, really important. It could happen to anyone, and so whether it's giving people who have a disability maybe a little extra leg room, or letting them board early. If American Airlines is falling down on the job when it comes to treating disabled passengers, imagine what it's doing to the rest of us. By the way, if you have anything to say about this, please leave your chats. Here, I've got another comment that came in from someone named Sarah about deregulation. So this, of course, brings up the whole issue of deregulation. Back in the late 70s, the Carter administration deregulated airlines, and now we have this. And so people are thinking, the reason that we have this terrible airline service is in part, at least, because of the way that airlines were very carelessly deregulated. And Sarah says deregulation is the single worst thing that has ever happened to the airline industry. I'm not going to disagree with that. She says it's gone too far. There has to be some bare minimum standards that are set and upheld to protect the health and safety of the flying public. Couldn't agree more. Right now, the big thing is actually we have to have a minimum seat requirement. Right now, airlines are moving their seats closer together, and it's just starting to get ridiculous. People are really getting scrunched in there. And if you've flown on a discount airline overseas, like an Asian carrier, you'll know that you're dealing with like 28 inches. So if you're a tall guy, I'm 6'1". So if I go in there and sit down in 28 inches, it's going to start cutting off the circulation. So I have to really wear my compression socks. It's a mess. So into the question of whether Southwest Airlines should be let out of jail. So it's suffered a lot, $1.1 billion. That's a little bit of money, even for an airline. So Jerry said, yes, let Southwest Airlines out of jail. And her fear, I think, is that you're going to have a situation where American Airlines comes in and is the dominant carrier in like the Phoenix market. And if that happens, then, prices are going to go up. It'll be a mess. So she says the economy in Arizona needs them to stay in business, Southwest Airlines, and people in Arizona will be stuck with American as the only hub airline. Yuck. Couldn't agree more. Absolutely. If Southwest Airlines goes out of business, which it's not going to, at least not in the near future, then, or even if it leaves that market, then it's just going to be American Airlines and a couple of smaller carriers, and then some international airlines, obviously. But basically, American will have Phoenix to itself. And we do not want that to happen. Competition is a good thing. And then KP says, if the punishment continues for too long, the world will find itself minus another choice. Just like we said before, yes, obviously, we do not want that to happen. I got another really interesting note from Tara Cannon, I've quoted her in a couple of stories about this summer. And this summer is shaping up to be a really, in fact, I'm going to bring Bob in here in a second to talk about that. This summer is just crazy. The FAA has issued some predictions about potential gridlock in the skies. I don't know if that's possible. Maybe it's just gridlock on the tarmac, but big problems coming up ahead. And so Tara mentioned that she's doing two things this summer, exclusively booking with the major carriers rather than the low-cost carriers, and paying to fly direct. Definitely a good idea. Let me bring Bob in here. Let's see. Bob, are you there? Hey there, Bob. How are you?
I'm doing fine, Christopher. How about yourself?
Oh no, I can't hear you. Hang on a second.
Uh-oh.
Can you unmute yourself, Bob?
Hold on. I should be unmuted.
No, we're not getting any sound from you.
All
right. You want to try maybe a different microphone? Are you on another mic?
Give me 1 second.
No, still nothing.
Mm-mm.
Oh no. Bob, I still want to get you in here. Let me see if there's something on my end.
Hold on a second. Is that any better?
No. Can you say something?
I'm
not getting any.
I'll start singing.
No.
If that helps.
From you. You want to restart and see if you can jump back in?
I can certainly.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. All right. We'll do that. Um, all right, to your chats. Oh, you could hear Bob, but I can't hear Bob. Oh, okay. I think I know what's going on here. Okay. All right. When he comes back in, that was a problem on my end. I'm working with this like new software, and it sometimes is a little bit glitchy, unfortunately. All right. We'll get Bob back in here. Thank you, Alex, David. Appreciate it. All right. So, so when Bob comes back, I really want to talk about the summer because I'm working on a story right now for USA Today about the summer travel season, and I'm wondering maybe you chatters have some thoughts on the summer ahead. Are you doing anything differently? When it comes to booking your tickets, like Tara mentioned, are you just booking a network carrier? Are you doing direct flights without a stopover to avoid, losing luggage or having any kind of disruption? And well, I don't see any chats now. I just see people saying, "No worries, David." Was that a commentary on what I was saying, or was it a commentary on Bob's? It doesn't matter. Anyway, so the summer air travel season, every year at around this time, all of my editors say, "Hey, Chris, what's it looking like for the summer?" And then I have to go out and write a story about, how is it going to be? Are we going to see more, um, more delays and, or, people, should people be flying or driving or anything like that? And question from a chatter about Vantage. Yes, I'm going to get to that in just a minute. I'm going to talk to Bob first when he comes back on about the summer air travel season, and then we're going to talk about the Vantage situation because there have been some new developments. So hang in there, and if you have a question, actually, it just says Facebook user, so I don't know what your name is, but if you have a question about the Vantage situation, please leave it now. Okay, there he is. And here I am. All right.
All
Bob.
right. Can you
Bob.
hear
All
me?
right.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Oh, there
How
we
are
go.
you?
Isn't technology wonderful when it works?
Yeah, I know. Well, it's always something. But this new system that I've got it's every day it's a new gremlin that I have to figure out how to get around it. And then I spend like an hour on the phone with them chatting, going, I don't know, what did I just do wrong? Uh, Bob Batchelor, it probably needs no introduction. And the reason why you don't need any introduction, Bob, is because I've quoted you so many times in my stories.
And it's
So
always a pleasure.
Bob runs a company called Flying Angels. Bob, do you want to just talk a little bit about what you do? And I'll enjoy my tea while you do that.
That sounds good. So, what we do here at Flying Angels is we have doctors and nurses around the country who fly with people who have medical needs or psychiatric needs or any kind of clinical need like that on the commercial airline. So, we're transporting anybody from grandma who has some dementia from a nursing home in Florida to a nursing home in New York to spinal cord injury patients. You were identifying the flights for people with disabilities earlier. We do a lot of spinal cord injury patients, traumatic brain injury patients, stroke patients around the country, to the big rehabilitation hospitals, to repatriating foreign nationals home. Two of my nurses are taking a patient to India today, and two of them are in Seoul, South Korea, bringing a U.S. citizen back from Seoul.
Wow. Well, I'm glad you took some time to join me here. I know you're a busy guy. So I got to ask you, for when it comes to domestic airlines, is there one airline that is a standout that does really good when it comes to disabled travelers?
Wow, you're gonna put me on the spot there. I don't want to get myself in trouble with my friends in the airlines. I happen to
Yeah.
think,
Go
and if
ahead.
I'm a, well, I live in Philadelphia, so The airline I'm on a lot is has a headquarters here in Philadelphia, but I think the most accommodating airline that I have come across and my team has come across is probably Delta. I
Yeah.
think, if I had to pick a favorite from among the big three, as far as accommodations. Now, I want to make sure that I separate the difference between the airlines and the airline employees. I have been flying patients around the world for 16 years, and I tell you what, airline employees are some terrifically dedicated people, and for the most part, they will do what they need to do to get somebody where they need to go. Now, maybe, somewhere in a bureaucracy at the airline, things may not be what everybody wants, but the gate agents, the flight attendants, um, the wheelchair pushers, the people that are transferring people in and out of seats. I mean, I think they are doing yeoman's work day in and day out, trying to get people, both able-bodied and disabled people, where they need to go. Um,
Okay, well, that was a really diplomatic answer, I gotta say. But
Thank you.
there is definitely a corporate culture at airlines. I mean,
Mhm.
we talk a lot about corporate culture at places like Southwest Airlines where they just do service. Service comes first,
Mhm.
unless you're talking about the previous holiday season. I'm kidding. And then Delta, which has almost kind of a southern hospitality, I would say. When you go down there and visit them in Atlanta, they're very, very nice. So and then you talk also about uh, airlines that have a lack of maybe a different, okay, maybe not lack, but a different. Now I'm being diplomatic.
Yes.
So are there airlines that you really, and you may not be able to answer this but are there airlines that you try to avoid going on because of maybe a corporate culture of, I really can't help you? I mean, low cost carriers like Ryanair and Spirit come to mind. Are there any that you have like on your Bob's blacklist?
Well, we generally do not fly on the discount carriers.
Hmm.
Um, and that may have less to do with a bad corporate culture, just as far as limitations of service. Airlines that you've mentioned, Spirit Airlines, Ryan Airlines, if they cancel a flight, you're just out of luck. The major carriers, if there is a flight cancellation, if there is a flight delay, you know, more often than not, they will try to see if they can accommodate you. Sometimes they can't. Sometimes there are no other options. Southwest, if you have a problem with a Southwest flight and they can get you on another Southwest flight, maybe they can help you out. But otherwise,
Yeah,
you're out of luck. So we tend
no,
to
that's
stick with
absolutely true.
the major carriers.
Yeah, yeah. A little input here from our chatters. We've got Samira, saying, uh, actually, that's one of his favorite strategies. That it's better to fly direct and to get and pay a little extra than to do the stopovers, which I guess goes to the whole hub and spoke system that the domestic airlines here in the United States have, which is they hub and spoke out of places like Dallas and Atlanta and Minneapolis, and then you have to always do a stopover. And it seems to me that some of the we were talking about discount airlines, some of the newer airlines like Breeze do a lot of point to point. Have your nurses flown on any of those? And Avilo, places, airlines like that, do they have any kind of experience with that? Do they like those airlines at all?
We will rarely use airlines like that,
Yeah.
smaller carriers like Allegiant, who have very strange routing. But there have been occasions where they have a flight that goes nonstop from one city to another city without going through the hub and spoke. But again,
Yeah.
we're going to come back to the problem that if they have a problem with that aircraft, they may fly that route once a day or once every other day. So in
Yeah,
many
that's true.
cases, you may be better off flying. So our first choice is always going to be first class. When somebody says which airline are we going to use, well, we're going to
Well,
use the one
that's
that
always
has
my first
the best
choice
option.
too. I always
So,
like flying first class. Yeah, I'm kidding. They never put me in first class. I would have to probably have a medical disability before someone will say, all right, we'll upgrade you. I mean, when I broke my pelvis a couple of months ago, they didn't even put me in premium economy class. I had to sit in the way in the back on a red eye flight from Buenos Aires to Houston. It was crazy. Um, anyway, I wanted to get to some of the questions that we had about the situation that's going on with Vantage. And I hope I'm not putting you on the spot, Bob, because I know that you're really like more of an airline guy here, but
mhm.
you're probably, maybe you've been following the situation with Vantage Travel and what's happened there. And so I'm really trying to figure out, we have had a couple of developments in that situation. I'll just bring everyone up to date really quickly. Uh, Yesterday, there was a report that the owner of Vantage Travel was suing his accountant. So that may be another twist in this saga. So there might be some money maybe unaccounted for, possibly. We don't know. Everything is still it's very vague. And there was just a report in the Boston Globe. And then there was also a report that the ships that were supposed to be running, there's 4 ships that are supposed to be operating. One of them wasn't where it was supposed to be. So the intrigue, the mystery deepens, I would say. So everyone wants to know what the latest is with Vantage, and it's very frustrating because I call Vantage every day, I email them, and I do not get a response. It's like they've gone completely dark. So what we do have are people who have questions, and so Bob, maybe you can help us out here. Here's someone who said, I made a reservation on Vantage before COVID hit. And since then, my wife died of COVID. Another traveler in our group died of cancer. So they've been waiting a really long time here. And Vantage split up the remaining travelers into different cruises. This person wants his money back. First of all, my condolences if you're watching. I'm sorry for your loss. But what the hell? Just what the hell? Bob, your thoughts on this?
Well, somebody once told me that if you have a problem with a cruise line and they offer you a refund or offer you a credit, to go for the refund.
Absolutely.
That was the advice I passed on to my mother when she had a cruise that canceled a few times during COVID. I'm going to rely on my airline experience on this one. We tend to avoid third party services, and I realize Vantage is a travel service. Um, we
Yeah,
tend to
it's a tour operator, so they
right.
run cruise ships like river cruises, but then they also obviously work with hotels and operators on the ground, and so they're delivering packages. Yes.
In our world, we always go directly with the provider.
Yeah.
When we're doing airline tickets, now we have an in-house travel department, but we're always booking hotels directly with the hotel. We're booking airline tickets directly with the airlines. This way, if it takes one person out of the loop. Now I realize there's a convenience of having a travel agency put together a package for you. Um, but our philosophy has always been just keep it simple. The fewer people you have in the mix, the better off you are.
Hmm.
And this way, if you have a particular problem, you're dealing directly with the vendor. I I don't mean to speak ill of some of the booking services. Maybe they have an advantage, but too many times I've seen people at hotels who booked a reservation through a booking service or through a third party, and they have a problem, and the folks at the hotel just say, "Look, you got to talk to the booking agent, whoever did this." Whereas if you have a problem and you book directly with the hotel or directly with the airline, you can talk directly to the hotel or directly to the airline. That's my take on
Yeah.
it.
If that's a great answer. There are some travel agents on, or travel advisors on right now. Please raise your hand in the chat. I would love to hear from you on this. And the reason why is, I'm glad you brought up booking services. This situation is a little bit different because Vantage did work with travel agents. So Vantage puts together these packages. Vantage does work with travel agents, but according to one of the trades that I read this morning, it actually actively encourages people to book directly with them. So bypassing the travel agents. If you had booked a Vantage cruise through a travel agent, they would have probably advised you to use a credit card. And if you had used a credit card instead of paying through ACH, never ever pay by cash, then you might have been able to get a refund by disputing your credit card charges. So that's the only, again, if there's someone who wants to, who's a travel agent or travel advisor in the chats, I would love to hear from you on that. In terms of options, Lori, who has been emailing me frequently about her refund issue, says that she's contacted Consumer Affairs, which is a website, DOT, Better Business Bureau, DOJ, Mass Attorney General, CPFB, New England ACH.
Oof.
Is there any entity that can actually assist in recovering $14,174? That's a lot of money. Bob, I am drawing a blank here. Do you know of any entity that can actually, maybe a court of law? I don't know. Do you know of anyone who can get that money back for her?
Well, the problem is, yes, you can file legal action. The problem that you'll run into is, you can file legal action. And again, I'm not an attorney, so take anything I say legally with a grain of salt. But you can often file in your local district with your magistrate, depending on the dollar value. And then you can usually get a judgment. But the problem that you run into then is collecting the judgment is an entirely different thing. So you can say, okay, yes, I won in court and I have a judgment for this $14,000, but collecting it is difficult. I happen to agree with you as far as credit cards. The catch with that is even vendors like myself, there's a credit card fee that we pass on, and some of our clients elect to pay us by ACH or wires. And I'm always very, very honored when somebody wires us $20,000 or $30,000. I think that's a terrific vote of confidence.
Yes.
That we better come through. But I always kind of look at reputation as hopefully helping with that. But there are people who do want to pay with credit card and incur the credit card fee, and the advantage that they have with that is then you have the credit card company as your advocate in the event that there is a problem, that you can go to them and say, hey, this service wasn't provided. So
yeah,
when you're booking something, that 3.5% to 5% that you may be asked to pay may be a worthwhile expense.
Right, and you're also protected under the law, the Fair Credit Billing Act, which is a law, it's been around for a while, does protect you. You have certain rights under that law to dispute a credit card charge. You do have a right also to dispute charges that are made through your bank. So if you're wiring money to someone, but those are less developed and banks don't really have a very clear understanding of them. So we've heard a little bit about ACH disputes. Those can work, but it has to be a fraud. It has to actually be an error. So there's a much higher threshold for something like that. And I'm like you, I'm right with you, Bob. If someone is going to wire me $14,000, I'm very honored by that. And if anyone here wants to do that, I can give you my account information later on. We have one of the chatters here from Facebook said, I paid them being Vantage Cruises or Vantage Travel, $30,000 via check in September. Oh, no. They've been unresponsive to my emails for over a week, and by virtue of the fact that they refuse to communicate, what legal action can be taken to grant a refund? I would think small claims court at this point, although it depends what state you're in, because small claims court, there's a threshold or a limit to the amount that you can sue under, and depending on wherever your state is. If you're still on, what state are you in? Maybe we could help you out. I don't know if it's $30,000. I don't know about Massachusetts, but I don't know. Bob, do you have any experience in small claims court?
I would think that would exceed the that would exceed the threshold in most states. Most states tend to run, between $5,000 and $10,000 for
Yeah,
small
yeah.
claims courts.
It's
Yeah.
California. So the chatter said California. I'm sorry we don't have your name, but the way that the system works, it just says Facebook user. So we've got a lot of Facebook users. You may be able to sue up to the limit in California. And also California has some other protections. If you're a seller of travel, then there's a California seller of travel law, and some regulations that you may be able to avail yourself of as well. It just really depends. Did you buy, while I've got you on the line, or did you buy it through a travel agent, or you just booked directly? It sounds to me like you booked directly. Um, so if you want to answer there, we can probably. And if, by the way, if there's anyone else who has a question, and we've got a little bit of time here, if you have a question about Vantage or about any way that you think you would like anything, okay, book directly. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, if you'd use a travel agent, that may be able to go through the travel agent. And what we're hearing too is that Vantage does actively encourage people to bypass travel agents. And so that, unfortunately, when that happens, then you don't have the same kind of protections that you would if you were using a travel advisor. And so here we go with someone else who says that they paid $21,000 for an Antarctica trip with a land extension. I did the Antarctica cruise last December and January, and it was amazing. And that was, I mean, if you get to go, it's great. But I don't know. I mean, Bob, look, if you are a betting man, and I can tell by that cowboy hat that you might be a little bit of a betting man, what would you say are the odds of Vantage pulling out of something like this?
Wow, that's what really putting me on the spot here. Well, the question is Vantage going to go under, or are they going to become an are they going to be an ongoing concern? Much like everything else, if Vantage goes into bankruptcy or receivership, the assets they have, will be returned, in some proportionality, to the
Yeah,
people who owe them the money. If I would think if Vantage wants to continue on as an ongoing concern doing business in the future, they are going to just have to resolve, these claims. So 50-50, it's going to go one way or the other.
50-50. You would give it 50-50?
Well,
Okay.
I'm going to root. I'll tell you what. I mean, I say it's
Well,
50-50, but I'm going to root for the people who gave them the money. So I want them to either get their money back or get their, or get their trips. Something.
I want the same thing. Obviously, I want the same thing. I mean, we're getting slammed with emails from people who want their money back, and they're out of options. They've some of them can't file a credit card dispute because technically the business is still operating, and so they're still solvent. If it goes bankrupt, then they have more options. But yeah, I mean, I want it to be 100% that Vantage is going to keep going. But I'm looking at this right now. Actually, I had a really interesting other email, and for some reason I didn't. Let's see if I can find that. This is really interesting. Let's see where this is. Oh, yeah, here it is. Okay. So when Vantage says that one of its ships is going to be leaving at a certain time, you would expect it to be in that place at the right time, right? Or close by.
I would hope so.
Yeah, right. So here we go. We've got another reader who said, I'm tracking the location of the ships daily through Cruise Mapper. So you can do that. You can go to Cruise Mapper. And that's what I did when I was in the Antarctica. I said, gee, I wonder where we are right now. So I went to Cruise Mapper, and it showed where my ship was. And it was in the middle of the, what's the Drake Passage, where the waves are like, 30 feet high. It's terrible.
Oh, right around the passes there on the Cape of Good Hope. Is that the?
Yeah, right, exactly. You go south from there, and I've never experienced an ocean, waves like that ever. It's just crazy. Anyway, so the ports visited by the Ocean Explorer are not the expected ports from Boston to Montreal. cruise. That's the one that this reader is on. And I have no way of knowing if any passengers are actually on board. So yeah, I actually went and looked at the coverage in the Boston Globe. And they had a picture of the ship, and it wasn't where it was supposed to be. You can't tell if it's actually got people on board at all. But I did get an email from someone who said they were on a recent Vantage cruise, and she said it was a 1-star experience. And I suspect the reason why is that vendors are not getting paid, as I said yesterday in the live stream. And so, you can't expect to have great quality. Even if you're technically operating a cruise line, you can't expect to have great quality if your vendors are unhappy. If the people on the ship are not getting paid, then they
Hmm.
probably are not going to be giving, top-notch quality service. They're going to be going, gee, I wonder if I'm going to get paid after this cruise. So there's a lot of moving parts, a lot going on. So Bob, if you were on one of these upcoming cruises, what would you do?
Well, I hate to say I'm not much of a cruise guy. There's too much food.
Well,
Although
that is true. There's a lot of very good food usually.
although one of these days we are going to take a team trip down on one of the cruises to Antarctica, only because that's the only continent that most of us have never been to.
Oh, it's
Um,
beautiful.
so I will most likely be following your advice when it comes to booking a cruise, but I would I would think realistically we're going to go directly with whatever cruise line we wind up going with, rather than going through a third party. Again, that's the way I think.
Take the seasickness medication. That's my advice. Because
I've been told that it can get very rocky down there.
it's for sure. Both coming and going, it was a rite of passage, that Drake passage. It's a rite of passage. Anyway, got another one here from Facebook. Is it legal to remain silent for so long, and what can they be sued for? It says notified the California and Massachusetts uh, uh, GGO, FTC. I don't even know what GGO is. All these acronyms. Anyway,
Mhm.
um, what can is it legal to not say anything to a reporter? I don't know. I've always been on this end. Have you ever given a reporter the silent treatment, Bob?
Oh no, no! Whatever reporter wants to talk to me, they can't shut me up. So I'll just
Okay.
go on for I'll go on for as long as they let me.
No, no, that's good. That's good. I like that about you. Is that if I need an opinion on anything, I can always call Bob and he'll get it. But what can they honestly though? What could they be sued for? You're a business owner. What do you think they would be liable for remaining silent and then not giving them the cruise? Is there a breach of contract, or what's the?
No, I would as a business, I don't think you can get in trouble for not saying anything. As a
Yeah.
business owner, you can only get in trouble for saying something. And there's a lot of things you can get in trouble for saying. So you're better off, keeping your mouth shut. So at least
Yeah.
that's what my attorney tells me.
We'll have to have your attorney on next time. Um, Charged by the hour, though. I don't know if
Yeah,
I
well,
can afford that.
that's probably it cost me too much. So I try never to talk to him.
Yeah, that's good advice, actually. Don't.
Yeah.
But I think the person here was asking, what can they be sued for in terms of if they, for what they're doing right now. In other words, if right now you've got a situation where they're not really being forthright with their customers, and some of the cruises are not operating, they're being canceled, and then some of them, the ones that are going out, are these 1-star experiences that one
Mhm.
of my readers is telling me about. What are they liable for then?
Well, I mean, if I would think again, and I'm not not an attorney, but at the same time, if if they're not providing the service that they're contracted for, then they are liable for breach of contract.
Yeah.
Once somebody's on the cruise, much as the same as if you buy a ticket on an airline and you have an absolutely horrible experience, well, if the airline got you where you needed to go, no matter how bad it was, I mean, technically they still got you where you needed to go. So I don't think there's any real guarantee of what your experience is going to be, how positive it is. All you can just do is review them after the fact, which,
Yeah.
I think I've commented a few times is just one of the amazing powers that people have when they leave reviews of companies. And I can only imagine that, what Vantage's reputation is going to look like, after all this is over. That's one of the reasons the company may not be around.
Yeah, I just don't see how this can continue. I don't think it can, but oh, got another question. Wanted to know if there was some fiduciary breach. That's a very technical term, and it's possible. I don't know. Is there a fiduciary breach? Usually, I hear that used when you're talking about a financial advisors or getting
Hmm.
financial advice. There's a fiduciary. I
Right.
don't know. I'm going to defer to you on that one, Bob. Do you know
Oh,
it?
I would defer to my lawyer, but I agree with you that I would be inclined to think that a fiduciary breach has to be you know somebody who has a fiduciary responsibility to you, and that's usually that's very specific.
Yeah. Another chatter wants to know well, there's a comment really, the longer they wait, their employees get paid until the point of no return, and possibly there's no money left to pay us. They're running out of money. Um, I think if again, we just don't know, but what we do know is that there's been another lawsuit by the owner of Vantage against, it looks like, his accountant. So that seems to suggest that there's maybe some money that's
Hmm.
gone missing or been misplaced or something, like we don't know. And again, I reach out to the company every single day. I leave phone messages, I email them, and they have not responded. There's there's nothing wrong with that, obviously. If you don't want to talk to a reporter, that's totally fine. But it creates a vacuum. We don't know what's going on, and if we don't know what's going on, there's really nothing. We, I mean, all we can do is we're just left to speculate, and so we connect some dots. Another Facebook user wants to know if they own their own ships. I think I had a conversation actually with when they were still talking to me that their ships were being financed by someone else. So there are other parties involved, and those parties, for all we know, may be watching this live stream right now going, what the hell? you know?
Well, I think that's one of the problems, with companies and sub companies and who owns what and where's the
Yeah.
flag carrier and where's the ship registered. I thought they owned some of the river cruises, or some of the ships that do the river cruises in Europe, but I wouldn't want anybody to hold me to that.
Yeah, I don't know enough about the company to know who actually owns the title on it, but I do know that I was talking with someone fairly high up, and there was he talked about some of the financing that was going on. So there are other parties. That's all I know, is that there are other parties, and they are probably watching the situation very closely and are very concerned, because I know there's some ships that are actually still in the shipyard that are being there are there was at least one, I think maybe two ships that were supposed to be delivered, and then there were delays. They were built in China, and they didn't they're not available yet, and so they had to do some rescheduling. It's The whole thing is a mess. This is like
Hmm.
watching a car accident in slow motion. I can't believe it. I mean, I've seen companies implode before, but this is really bad because, I mean, they're all bad, of course, but when you've got a bucket list cruise and you've spent $30,000 on a bucket list cruise, and suddenly all that is going out the window,
Hmm.
man,
Yeah,
I don't
that's
know.
That's frustrating. Well, what's fascinating is that, a lot of the legalese people are talking about actually came about because of the maritime industry, in Old England. So we're kind of, this is all the laws going back to their roots as far as the limited liability companies and, who
Yeah.
owns what and who's liable for what. That all came out of, old school maritime.
Well, these cruise ships are operating within the territorial waters of a company of a country, I should say. And
Hmm.
so their laws, like if you've got a riverboat cruise that's operating out of Basel, Switzerland, that's one of the bases that they have there.
Hmm.
you're subject to Swiss law, and then if you go into Germany, into German law, you can't just operate some cruise, riverboat cruise haphazardly. They make you dot every I and cross every T over there. I think the real issue right now is, who is liable for all of this, and where are they? And this will, I can't see how this would not end up in court somewhere.
Hmm.
Um, and it's fine if you want to play fast and loose with your customers' money. It's your decision. But I want to get these people their money back as quickly as possible and
Sure.
get them on a replacement cruise. So, parting shots, Bob. What would your advice be to anyone who is has one of these cruises scheduled and doesn't know if it's going to go? What would you do?
Well, I mean, I think your advice is correct on this. If they can get a, if they can get a refund, go for it. I think this is really a tricky situation for a lot of people to be in, to not
Yeah,
know what's going to happen. I think the not knowing is often worse than knowing what the answer is. If you know the answer, is good or bad, then you can make your plans. But when you don't know, is the cruise going to go? Is the cruise not going to go? Am I,
yeah,
getting my money back? Am I going on a different cruise? That's where unfortunately, that's where you're just paralyzed, and you have to wait to see what transpires. I mean, the work you're doing to, as an advocate is terrific. Hopefully the people who, paid by credit card or going to the credit card companies, the people who have paid by ACH, I think ACH, going to their banks is a terrific way to go. I think if they're proactive about these things and say, this is what I want, I want you to refund my money, then go on the record and say, I want you to refund my money at this point. So
yeah.
that would be my thought.
I, I agree with you totally. I think the worst thing you can do right now is to wait,
Hmm.
because the situation already is bad enough that if waiting and just saying, well, I've got a cruise scheduled for late May or early June, I'm just going to wait and see what happens. If you wait, the longer you wait, my experience is that the longer you wait for any kind of a dispute, so whether it's an ACH dispute or a credit card dispute, if you wait, the longer you wait, the less likely the dispute will be successful and will go your way. It's just, and I've actually seen, I have some experience with credit card disputes, and I've seen people. I run a little newsletter, and sometimes people will forget that they subscribe to the newsletter, and they'll just, instead of canceling it, they'll dispute the charges. And what I can tell, and maybe you've experienced this too, is if you wait 5, 6, 7 weeks to dispute a credit card charge, your bank's going to be like, yeah, I don't know about that. But if the moment you see it, you say
Hmm.
something, much more likely for the bank to,
Yes.
to help you out.
Yes, absolutely.
Chatters, this is last call for any kind of questions. I think we're going to try to wrap things up. I love comments like this. Thank you for the work you're doing. No, thank you for being here. I mean, these live streams have been a lot of fun to do, and I'm glad Bob was able to join us. Bob, your perspective is so valuable on something like this, because you are a small business owner
Hmm.
and because you have all this experience dealing in the travel industry. I think that what you've said is really going to help people. So thank you very much.
Oh, thank you.
We've still got a couple more questions. Do you want to hang out for a little while longer, or do you have to go?
Absolutely.
Okay. Send a registered email, or rather a registered mail letter
Registered mail. Yeah.
requesting a refund. Is that going to do any good if they send a registered mail?
Well, it gets them on record, which plays to your comment of get in early. And this way, if you do wind up going to court, you
Paper
have
trail.
established your place in line
That's
as
right.
to when you filed your claim. And that can be, who gets paid first is often who filed first. So that certainly sounds like a good idea to me.
I have no experience in bankruptcy court, but I have talked to people who have gone to bankruptcy court. And what they tell me is that the vendors, the big vendors, they always get at the front of the line. And then the little guys, the customers, the people who have like tickets on an airline or on a cruise line, they always go to the end of the line. That's just how it is. and
Unfortunately.
they always get pennies on the dollar. It's never they're going to get a whole refund. It's
Yeah.
very unfortunate. So you do not want to end up in bankruptcy court, my friends. You do not want to. We got more comments coming in now. Okay, well, let's just keep going here. I don't know. Let's see. They wanted to know, replying to the Facebook user, you're trying to get refunded for a trip that is still scheduled. Well, that's the $1 million question: is if you still have if you still have a cruise, do you wait to see if that cruise is going to go, or do you try to cancel and get a refund now? And I don't know. My sixth sense, my journalistic sixth sense tells me it really is. It's not going to happen. Right now they've got three. Well, they had 4 cruises, and the one of them is not even where it's supposed to be. What do you think, Bob? Cancel it now
Unfortunately,
or not?
well, can you? I mean, what, when they contracted for the cruise, was there any clause in there that allows you to cancel? Maybe you're better off taking a partial refund if that's an option. But realistically, if you've paid them money and they still have the promise of a product, and you don't have anything in the clause that says you can get a refund for XYZ reason, I kind of think you're stuck. Is
Yeah,
my
yeah.
thought.
Another Facebook user mentions that they're still mailing catalogs, which is misleading because obviously they're not really doing much business. I totally agree. Then someone else answered, if they cancel now, would they be subject to cancellation penalties? Technically, yes, but if there's no company,
Yeah, pay the penalty.
whatever, the penalty would be entirely on you. It really comes down to trying to figure out if Vantage is going to be around and be able to operate these cruises. And I would have probably, if all 4 of those cruises had left as scheduled, and if there wasn't that one that was in the wrong place, I might have said, you might want to wait a little while. But the signals that I'm getting are not very good. I don't know.
Well, we have
Um,
Thomas Cook a couple of years ago. We have Crystal
yeah.
Cruises. What was that? Was that 2 years ago? 3 years ago? Crystal Cruises went bankrupt.
Right. Well, with Crystal, that was really interesting because everyone lost. I mean, you had some disputes that happened, but people lost a lot of money. And then the new owner came in, bought Crystal Cruises, and gave everyone kind of a credit. So that could happen conceivably here, but it would take a long time, like a year maybe, before, if there was a new owner of Vantage and they decided that they were going to take over all the ships and all the existing bookings, then it probably would be a while before they actually gave people any kind of credit, and they may not get all their money back or all the credit back. But it's never going to be a refund. The only way to get a refund would be ACH dispute or a credit card dispute. So go to talk to your bank and just
Or
see
how
what
about
they can do for you.
trip insurance? Would that be of help?
Yeah. I've talked about trip insurance in a couple of these live streams. Hang on a second. And trip insurance can work, but usually there has to be a cessation of business in order for that clause to be invoked. In other words, the cruise line has to go out of business. It has to go under before you can file a claim. And then the other problem that we've been having is that when there is a claim that's paid out, it's paid to Vantage, and then Vantage passes it on to the consumer, which I don't understand at all. It should be getting the person should be getting, who filed the claim, should be getting the money. So even if you can file a successful claim, it's going back to the company, and then the company is keeping the money. Very clever.
That doesn't sound right.
It doesn't. I know. Well, you're dealing with the cruise industry. It writes its own rules. It's a little bit like the airline industry. The airline industry loves to make its own rules up, but cruises are pretty bad too. And these river cruise operations, I got to say, Vantage is not the only one. There are some other operators that really have not done right by their customers, and I'm not very happy with them. But that's something for another day.
Okay.
Bob, I can't believe it's been an entire hour, but I had so much
Wow.
fun chatting with you.
Oh, it's
And
been my pleasure.
yeah, we'll have to do this again soon.
Sure.
Um, and where are you off to? Where's your next big destination?
Oh, it's conference season for me. So the fall and the spring tend to be conference seasons. So I think I'm off to Las Vegas in a week, and then off to Monterey for and these are all travel conferences.
Oh boy. Well, I can't say I envy you. I don't like going to conferences very much, but you got to do what you got to do, right?
Yes. Yep. Absolutely.
All right. Well, it's Saturday morning here in New Zealand, so I think I may be off for the weekend unless something really crazy happens, and then I'll jump back in and we'll do another live stream. So I will see everyone on. Oh, we got another chatter. Hang on a second. One more question. Why not? Allianz Trip Insurance told me my insurance is only for trip interruption, and then they only offered a refund of $249. Yes, good point. Okay, before we go, yes, some policies do not cover any kind of operator going under. They would only cover certain things. That's not very unusual. And if you didn't have like cancel for any reason insurance, you would be stuck with this kind of with these limitations. Always read the fine print on your travel insurance. But if anything, this is really a case study for why you need to consider travel insurance, because if you had like a cancel for any reason, you would have gotten everything back. But always find out though who gets paid. If your cruise line gets paid, then that might be a bad thing, as we can see here. Make sure that you're the person who's actually getting the money back. Anyway, party
Yes.
thoughts. Thank you really to both to all of the chatters for being and asking great questions. And Bob, thank you too. I appreciate it.
It was my pleasure. Happy to be here.
Okay. Have a great weekend.